Hello from the Student of Rhythm. I am a Rush fan. Kind of a lapsed Rush fan. And I say that because it's been a while since I've actually listened to Rush. I got into listening to them because of my older brothers, who are a good deal older than me, at least 10 years older than me. And this was back in the day when they had some of their early records on vinyl. I still have some of those records. And actually, I remember the summer of 1994, I listened to Caress of Steel quite a lot on vinyl on a big old cabinet record player sound system job that was in my grandparents' house we moved into, or it was in the other house we moved into after that. 1994 was a disruptive year in my life. We moved from where we had been living back out here to my ancestral homeland of Utah. As ancestral as... It's not as ancestral as America gets. But anyway. So, yes, I got into listening to Rush back then. And kept on, and once in a while I'll go back and dip in again. I introduced my two daughters to them, and they still have an affection for the band. I'm wondering if I want to go hear Getty and Alex and Annika doing their tour next year. I guess this year, right? I expect that's going to be out of my reach. They're probably not coming anywhere close. And the ticket prices. I saw Rush once, 1994 Counterparts tour, Minneapolis, and the tickets seemed ruinous to me at the time. And my older sister and I were up in the nosebleed section. There were big clumps of amplifier speakers hanging from the ceiling, getting in the way of the projection screen where at Rush concerts they like to show videos and things like that. I say this to introduce something that has come to my mind, something that I thought about at whiles, and I was thinking about safe spaces and how people try to make safe spaces. And I don't believe that's realistic or possible. I don't even believe it's honest. I think to try to set up a safe space is a conceit. I think it's kind of a manipulative conceit. And maybe it's not consciously manipulative. Maybe some people are actually manipulated by what I call this. Am I going to get woo-woo and call this like a certain kind of spirit? But there are some things that people do that they consciously manipulate to try to bring about their own design that they devise with their own ego. I want something to happen, so I'm going to do this because I'm going to try to get somebody else to do something. But so much of the time, I believe, what we do is we're simply carrying on and executing scripts that are, if they're, maybe they're unconscious, but they serve some kind of end. They just don't serve our end. And, we can get metaphysical about whether you believe. I happen to accept and take that as a pragmatic belief to carry forward and guide myself with it. There are, if nothing else, purposes, and I would be okay with attaching willful agents to those purposes. That we act according to not enough virtue, not enough discipline, not enough self-reflection and humility, and any of that. We do things that there's the meme trope of the NPC. We make ourselves NPCs. We just fall into doing something that carries out some purpose that isn't really our purpose, or we might think it's a purpose, but we haven't looked into it or thought honestly enough, and so we're just carrying on some kind of program. And that's how I believe it happens when people try to make a safe space, or think that they can, or think it's important to make a space a safe space. What I think that really amounts to is setting a certain frame outside of which you are going to not tolerate deviation or dissent. But you'll enforce this in a way that makes you seem virtuous, and that makes all the other people that buy into your conceit, you all will, to be crude, you'll all masturbate each other's conceit of being virtuous and guarding this safe space. Maybe I'll have to walk back what I've been saying a little bit, because I believe it's not exactly walking back. To qualify, we make spaces that are exclusive. We have to. There's no getting away from this. When human beings get together for some kind of purpose, they have to draw a circle, and they have to wall the garden, and they have to keep some things out in order to have what they want to be inside protected. And I guess I believe it's more honest to be forthright about that. So, for example, if you're going to say, we're going to, build and establish a temple, right? And in order to get in, you are required to go along with certain standards and things that are exclusive by design, because we are excluding, oh boy, are we ever excluding some things, so that we can have a certain kind of environment that is in accordance with the best we can try to approach our understanding of what we believe is a God-revealed way of worship. And so, inclusivity, when people try to make inclusivity a value that is higher than it should be, I don't believe they're being honest. I think they're just diverting attention away from the truth of the kind of circle that they're drawing, and what they're excluding from it, and what they're including in it. And they're telling this lie about making a space that's totally inclusive and totally safe. Now, there's a Rush song that I think it's on Snakes and Arrows. I'm not as familiar with Rush's catalog after Test for Echo. Of their later material, Snakes and Arrows is probably my favorite. I haven't listened to Clockwork Angels that much, actually. I've listened to Snakes and Arrows more than I have Clockwork Angels. So I'm pretty sure it's on Snakes and Arrows that there's a song. I don't know if I'm going to be able to quote it very well. In the shakiest will, there's a core of steel. Let's see, on the sweetest child, there's an acid tongue, and the oldest there's a child so young. In the shakiest will, there's a core of steel. In the smoothest ride, there's a squeaky wheel. And it's kind of dwelling on this theme of imperfection. And one of the lines, in the whole wide world there's no magic place, so you might as well rise, put on your bravest face. So it's Neil. I hope Neil Peart. I hope he came to some kind of realization that what he was doing as a lyricist and as a musician was casting spells, was writing spells. That song is a motivational song. It's supposed to be calling on you to face the world with bravery, because there's nothing perfect in this world. I was reflecting on this. I reflect on the way that he uses language in this sort of idiosyncratic way, that he kind of leaves his fingerprints on it. In the whole wide world, there's no magic place. Well, I kind of take issue with that on a certain level, I've gone to some magic places. For crying out loud. Neil used to do a kind of a blog where he would drive around. I remember reading his travel memoir or something when he visited Zion National Park. And so yeah, him being kind of like a determined agnostic, maybe he would have shied away from saying that was a magic place. So the way that he chooses to use the word magic, I can abide with that. I can step back and regard that and understand. When he uses magic place, he uses perfect place, flawless, magic in the sense of maybe immortal, maybe so above the constraints of reality, of normal reality, in which everything has a flaw. It's kind of like when he writes in Hand Over Fist, I feel my spirit resist, but I open up my fist. And again, I can understand what he means by spirit in his sort of idiolect. It was a problem for me when I encountered that song when I was 16, because I was raised in this tradition that used spirit in a different way. And so when I'm contemplating this song that is kind of aimed at trying to get inside the head of, I think, a lot of his and a lot of their fans, of the experience of being introverted and being, I don't know, maybe it has something to do with attachment style. But Hand Over Fist is about the experience of being, the lines from the song. I thought I was okay alone. Wait for the postman and the telephone. Lost in a world of my own. I thought I could run alone. Thought I could run through the night alone. It's about this isolation and versus connection. And at some point, the song has this turning point where the narrator decides to open up and try to be more connected with other people, even though I feel my spirit resist. Again, Neil being kind of materialistic-minded, agnostic, didn't really seem to have much use at that time, at least in his lyric writing, for thinking about or talking or writing about the concept of spirit in the way that I would, or that any of us religious-minded folk would. Even though in his book, in his sort of memoir, Ghostwriter, he's coping with the loss of his wife and daughter, and he goes on these motorcycle rides, and he talks about riding through he says something like his soulscapes, like landscapes that seem to be kind of like where they kind of mirror his soul. So he starts to use that kind of language when he's faced with that kind of crisis. There's no way to ask him now, God rest his soul, that whether he would have regarded the mountain forest as a magic place. But since he wrote that before he wrote the lyrics to, I can't remember what that song's called, the song I've been talking about Bravest Face. Before he wrote the lyrics to Bravest Face is when he was writing all this about soul and everything. And I expect he was kind of feeling like he was feeling maybe a bit embarrassed, like he'd been letting his sentimentality, run away with him, and he was kind of pulling back and trying to be, very cool and rational. And I can't know for sure. Like I said, the man has gone these, how many years now? God rest his soul. So there's some consideration and some thinking about that and about that song, and I appreciate the message of that song as a spell. You got to be careful with that sort of thing, as I learned early on when listening to Rush, particularly the song Anthem, which didn't really age well considering Neil's later on. I actually was surprised to hear him speak on camera about his the meaning and fulfillment he found in giving philanthropically from his wealth. I thought this totally goes against the grain of what he wrote in Anthem. But, people evolve. So you got to be careful with the kind of spells that you take in and that you align yourself to. It's like they told us when we were teenagers and we were listening to all that music. Be careful about the lyrics of the music. Well, it's true. If you're thinking through and thinking deliberately and being attentive to what the lyricists are trying to call you to do. In this case, I appreciate this call to rise and put on your bravest face and to not expect the world to conform to your needs, not to expect the world to be too gentle, to cultivate the strength, the toughness, the resolve, the bravery, because nowhere on earth are you going to find an entirely safe space. Even when you're in the temple, you're going to deal with maybe some absent-minded workers. You're going to be dealing with people who are maybe a little bit, if not rude, but they're maybe going to, like I said, old people that might not see you or get out of the way, or you're just going to be dealing with this mortality. You're going to have to pee, and there's a bathroom in there. I was really surprised when I first went through the temple, and there's bathrooms. This is supposed to be a holy place, and we're still having to deal with the gross bodily needs. We're still even having to exist in matter. You still take your ceremonial clothes off and put them in the laundry because your dead skin rubs onto things. And so even when you're doing the most sacred rituals and things to put you in mind of a heavenly home, you're still dealing with the limitations of material reality. So face it with bravery. I appreciate that. And I can glean and hold that meaning even as I'm aware of the divergences and the disagreements I have with how the wizard used his language in that instance. I have talked long enough. I will talk to you later.